everybody has the one that got away or the one that maybe I shouldn't have sold. And there's always a Facebook post of like, maybe I shouldn't have sold this for whatever, or whatever car it was. If it was your dad's Chevelle, your Chevelle, if it was anything like that. And of all goofy things that I had, that was the one that got away, is shortly after high school, I bought a 1991 yellow Geo Tracker. Now, I had this CRX, which are awesome cars still to this day. I had a CRX with a wall of subwoofers in it. And I was that guy that was the most annoying kid at a stoplight. And as you're trying to just mind your own business while your teeth are rattling out, and I'm playing Ice Cube, just the most profane thing you've ever heard in your life, beating down the street on the south side of Indianapolis. So I wanted to make this Geo Tracker with this wall of sound system and everything else. And I'm like going, yeah, that sounds like about a terrific project for an early 20s-year-old kid. So I had already had a Ford F-150 flare side that was just this custom truck, and it was awesome. I had a Mercedes 190E with an AMG kit on it, some hammers. I mean, I was just living it. So now at this point, I'm about to add the third vehicle to my stall of useless cars. And at that time, I was dating the starter wife, and we went to a Chevy dealership and financed a 91 yellow Geo Tracker, of all things, which may not have been the best financial decisions, but there are, at almost 50 years old now, there are more terrible ones to come. So this 91 Tracker is a stick, two-wheel drive. I mean, it was the bottom base, and if you slam a door on the Tracker, like you can literally like grab them and they like accordion. Like I can't believe they allowed us to drive these things. No airbags. Of course, they're the predecessor to the Samurai, and the Samurai was notorious for rolling over, and they were, every 60 minutes episode we'd have some poor guy that had rolled one. So we had the Tracker, and I'm now transplanting everything out of the CRX into the Tracker. And by that time, my mentor, who just passed away, Phil Blake, he owned Installations Plus. And Phil taught me 12 volts, and he was awesome and taught me how ohmage and subwoofers and amplifiers and everything. And that's why the CRX would make your ears bleed. But now I have this more room in the Tracker, and the top comes off. So now if I wasn't annoying enough in the CRX, now all of the south side of Indianapolis would be like, oh, here comes the redheaded kid with the Tracker that's the top is doing this, like because I have so much sound. So by the time we were done, Phil and I had installed 4 Rockford 18s in this back of this thing with a custom built enclosure, firing them all up. The amps were all on the swinging outside door, so it was just this awesome presentation. We had our yellow neon tubes on it. We had our Sony CD plus the cassette player that comes out like a drawer. All of the roll bar had speakers, and I was the most annoying kid on the south side of Indy. The girlfriend, which became the starter wife, and I, after our 50th breakup, decided that the Tracker was going to be her car. But I owned all the stereo in it, and it's one of those, those people that break up and get back together, break up and get back together. If you're in your 20s going through that, stop from a guy that's almost in his 50s. So she came by with the police because, remember I said we financed it. She financed it. It wasn't mine. So it's legally hers, and everything in it is legally hers. And I found out the hard way. So there goes my yellow Tracker. There goes all my sound system. There goes everything. By that time, I'm very sure the Mercedes didn't run worth a crap, and I'm driving this Ford F-150. It was cool, but it wasn't a daily. And I know that it either got repossessed or she sold all the sound system. It's like insert sad story here, but that was the one that got away. And of all things, a Geo Tracker. So as I got a little older here, and I'm like thinking, man, the Radwood scene, and I always talk about the Radwood car shows, and I always talk about Vice City shows. And if you don't go to these things, you're missing out because you've got the one guy in the Corvette at Cars and Coffee in his jorts, and he really wants to talk to you about his Corvette, or Doug. He really wants to talk to you. I mean, his Corvette's the best Corvette. I was on a mission to find another Geo Tracker, and it had to be yellow, and it had to be the yellow interior, and I didn't really care beyond that, but these things are now 30 years old, and they are a disaster. Not that they weren't a disaster right off the assembly line, but they are in terrible shape. And I had to be rust free, and it had to be something that I could modify back to the car that I had 30 years ago. So I had actually found the original stereo. I had found the Sony with the cassette that came out. It's like an XK8 or something. Like every time my notifications went off on eBay, I'm that guy like going, I don't care how much it's worth, I'm buying one. So I bought the stereo with the intention of putting it into the tracker, but I did not have the tracker yet. And you can get Talking Head Ed up here going Auto Tempest, Auto Tempest, Auto Tempest. But my hand to God, I found my Geo Tracker on Auto Tempest. And I did because I couldn't find one anywhere on any of the Facebook marketplaces, but it allows you to search all of them. So lo and behold, if you got Ed up here talking about all the time, I actually used it and it worked. And I went to Illinois, which was outside of my Facebook search zone, and bought one from a one owner family who had it since new. And it also had like the key fob on it from Ken Default Chevrolet and like the frequent oil change thing. And I get there and it's like in this its own little garage, and it's this canary yellow Geo Tracker. It's got Tweety Bird floor mats, and it was just the worst. And it was a yellow one with a white top. I had no idea why they went that direction, but it was the OEM top. And it's an automatic, which is kind of a letdown, but it is what it is. It's a 93. My original was a 91, but it's the same thing. No airbags, death trap, nightmare on wheels. Why do I want this? It had 80,000 miles and it was no rust. And I was like, all right. So we shrewdly negotiated a price about $500 less than what they were asking. So I may have paid way too much for a Geo Tracker, but it's mine. Went that same day and bought the giveaway car for the Backyard 400. So now I have two of the worst cars on earth driving back from Effingham, Illinois area with a 1989 Chevrolet Z24 convertible and a 1993 Geo Tracker. So, needless to say, everybody probably thought I needed my head examined, but they're probably still correct. So I get back to the house and get back to the shop, and I'm prepping to go on the 80s cruise, and I'm working on DJ equipment out the shop, and I just keep looking at it over there like, oh man, what I'm going to do with it. And I keep looking back at all the old photos of my original tracker that I lost, and I'm like going, what am I going to do with this thing? And it's snow on the ground, and how do we modify it to make it look exactly like I had it? So all the little mini truck forums and everything that's on Facebook and all these little pages, I was looking for a set of hammers for this thing. And a hammer is basically the same wheel that was on the Mercedes, but these are American Racing, Fittipaldi, Momo, all the original crappy wheel companies that Progressive, Ultra, Prime, they all made the same wheel. They just put the different center cap on the middle of it. And I needed a set of reversed offset hammers that fit a Geo Tracker, and they have a humongous hub, and they're like 5 on 5, and it's like the worst lug pattern and the worst wheel combination you can find. But somehow one of these mini truck forums guy's like, hey, I have a set off a Geo Tracker in Louisiana, and I'm like, put them in a box, send them this way. So now I have way too much money, but you always have to find the fifth. Like you can't be riding around your tracker on hammers and then have like the regular spare tire on the back. Like you've got to find the fifth. So we found a fifth in Detroit. So now I have all the wheels I want. We have everything we need to reproduce this thing. We have the original stereo that I had when I had hair back in this thing. And I'm like, all right, so but we're sitting tall. And they used to make lowering springs for these things, and they would lower Geo Trackers of all things. People my age back then would just cut the springs and they would ride like a dump truck, like they were just terrible. But we didn't care. At almost 50, I care now. So I called H&R Spring of all places because they had an old part number for a Geo Tracker lowering spring. And I gave this nice young lady who happened to answer the phone there, and I said, I'm looking for this part number. And her audible gasp, she knew that this was an old part number. So she was able to locate 3 sets of the original Geo Tracker lowering springs. And now she has 2 sets because I bought one. Brought it over, and we just did the normal common area maintenance on thing. We did timing chain, brakes, whatever else, because I wanted this thing to, be awesome. And it was the winter months, and now I'm modifying this thing for the summer. Bought a black top with tinted windows, and it's everything I ever wanted for the original one, and now it's mine, and no one can take it away from me. Here we go. Spring weather comes out. It even came with a bikini top. I mean, hey, now I'm happening. So since I'm little hairless upstairs. I went ahead and put the bikini top on it instead of the full top. And I'm riding around Indianapolis and I drive this thing everywhere. It only has 80,000 miles on it. And now it runs like a top, and not that it ran bad. And I have all these crazy cars. I mean, I have, Australian Holden Utes and all this stuff, and Winston Cup cars and things that I've had. And everything I own is bright. Like if you go in my garage, I have a green Commodore and an orange shop truck, and my wife's car is orange, and now this thing is this bright canary yellow Geo Tracker. But out of every car I have, the one that gets yelled at the most at every stoplight is this Geo Tracker. They cannot believe that some almost 50-year-old guy is still whipping around listening to Ice Cube in his Geo Tracker. Little do I know why we built this thing, that whenever we hold events and people come and stay at the house, everybody's seen this thing now on Facebook for the last year, and everybody that comes in town wants to borrow this. Mark Spence and Rob Pitts went to barbecue in the thing, and you'll know it because you can hear it coming down the street from 3 blocks away. They're still out there. If you have the one that got away, it's time to go look for the one that got away, and mine, unfortunately, was a 1991 Geo Tracker.
When you get a ticket, no matter where it happens, it's more important than ever to fight every one. And the perfect partner in that fight is the Ticket Clinic. When you get a ticket, you're facing costly insurance premium increases, points on your license, fines, risk of suspension, jail time, and they can help you avoid all of that. They've got offices in Florida and in California, but they can help you fight a ticket through their network of attorneys no matter where in the United States you get one. You can text a picture of your ticket to 305-305, or you can check them out now at the link in the description below. So thank them for their support of VINwiki, of CarTrek, and fight your ticket with the Ticket Clinic.